You two, duel to the death over that engine. So, at last, several days later, I am looking at things in broad daylight. See, the drive shaft on the left is the Miata's drive shaft, your standard Mazda NA type Miata drive shaft, and the drive shaft on the right is, of course, for 1980 Mazda Capella, like that one, because it is that one's. Good news number one is bolts. I don't know where these went. Yeah, that's a strong showing. Yes, good news number one is, apart from this shield thing, these are exactly the same part, which is cool. Thank God for saving a bit of money and just reusing the same stuff. And one concern I had when I started this endeavor was that this transmission, the drive shaft comes out right underneath where the gear lever comes out to go into the cabin. And on Tomo's original transmission, it was about this much, maybe very scientific measurement, this much, of extension backward where the drive shaft connected here. So I was thinking, oh no, I am going to need to order a custom drive shaft, because if I were to put this exactly, and this is like my main priority, put this exactly where the old transmission came up, so I can reuse, and I'm actually going to have to retrofit the original gear lever because I'm weird and I want a long throw gear lever. Going to have a problem where you're going to be several inches too short. Well, when I was looking at these two, I noticed that the Miata's drive shaft is just a connection to the transmission, a connection to the differential, and one shaft. And Tomo's is two pieces with a U-joint there. Now, something that I've noticed is that the Miata's drive shaft piece is a few inches longer than the longer piece on Tomo's drive shaft. Now, is that going to be exactly what I need? Is it going to be too much or not enough? Obviously, I'm going to need to drop this transmission into that car, and the engine, into that car and find out what exactly I need. But my fingers are very much crossed. I probably shouldn't be holding this much hope out, but my fingers are very much crossed that I can use this in combination with that and just use what I have rather than ordering a very expensive custom drive shaft. This makes me very happy indeed. On this piece, maybe if I just did that, it's definitely a different piece than the original Capella connection to the differential. I think it's a little wider, ultimately. So, obviously, I'm going to use this piece when connecting to the diff because I'm still running the stock diff. This can only end well for me. But this looks somewhat compatible with that, I think we're going to be just fine taking this, putting it here, if this is indeed what we're going to do. So yes, that's some good news. This is just eyeballing everything. Actual viewing it under the car in situ is going to tell all, essentially. But yes, I've also been able to confirm that that I think is for the Speedo. No, it isn't. My brother pulled the Speedo cable, so I'm not entirely sure where it went, but it's one of these pieces. Might actually be that, and I'm just dumb. But yeah, the Speedo cable is compatible. It's exactly the same piece at the transmission, which is very, very cool because, one, I'm a nerd, and I want to keep and preserve the original mileage on the chassis, even though this engine doesn't quite have 170,000 miles on it. But, it's within, 15,000 miles of one and the other, so I'll take it. And additionally, I mean, that gauge cluster, rather, which my other video on the channel, cost me a lot of money, and I had to import it from Europe. So I would have been very pissed off if I had to retrofit it to something else. So no, I'll be able to reuse that. It's very good. Yeah. Very filled with optimism once again. It makes me very happy.
And now, a side project. In most markets, you could have a CB2 Capella with a cassette deck slotted below the ashtray, but that wasn't even offered as an option in the US market. AM/FM came standard, and that was seen as enough when similarly priced cars from the big three were lucky to have AM only. 8-track was on its way out by 1980. However, when this car appeared on Bring a Trailer in 2019 with what looked to me like a dealer-installed 8-track, the fever started. On hindsight, it's much more likely that the original owner slotted that Clarion-branded 8-track in by themselves, but a trivial detail like that wasn't going to stop me. The theme of Tomo's rebuild is to make an implied factory supersport / grand touring edition of the CB2 Capella. The Miata engine provides the muscle for my build, but a GT car needs to be comfortable as well as fast. In my little head, that means Mazda would have lavished the car with luxurious doodads to go with the extra power. In the plentiful downtime on this build, waiting for a sunny day to work on Tomo, I spent a lot of time on eBay drooling at 45-year-old aftermarket tape decks of all sorts. The exact model of Clarion 8-track seen in the Bring a Trailer car appeared on eBay. I ended up with 2 of them. However, at the same time, a brand new old stock Clarion cassette deck from their 1980 catalog also appeared. It even had green running lights, much like the rest of Tomo's interior. So guess what? I decided to have both. Both is good. And yes, I didn't film anything of the sort providing this kind of context. That's why I'm telling you.
Should have started this a lot earlier, but nevertheless, I am trying to make room for that behind here. This screw goes there on the right. I'm trying to dismantle the other pieces on this heater control console. Let's see. So that there, the knob is your heater knob. Those 2 are for the heater controls. That's your AC control. Potentiometers for your radio. A washer and a nut for the radio before you put the potentiometers on. Screw in the left is for these top pieces. Screw in the right is for behind the ashtray. Do not know if I'm going to need those still.
These are non sequiturs. And these go behind the cigarette lighter because they hook up to a bolt, which hooks up to a nut. The nut is the connection on the edge of the cigarette lighter, and the bolt is inside the cigarette lighter. The metal washer goes on the inside. The carbon washer goes on the outside. I'm assuming to ground something. Yeah, that's all coming out. And let's see, the red one hooks back there. The one with the bolt hooks in the center, and then there's a ground black wire which hooks on the left of the cigarette lighter there. That should be everything. So, if ever you would be in need or want of an ashtray in the future in your car, you need these two brass screws, upside down, of course, attached to the rear of this piece, this other metal piece in here. So yeah, not this platform in the front, but in the back. Just gonna you'll figure it out, I'm sure. And then obviously the front of it is screwed into these, which I will try to preserve as much as possible. But otherwise, this thing is cleared and ready for an 8-track player. Here's something real neat. So here is the facade for the instrument, the accessory panel. There's a little light for here, the ashtray. You want to know what it is? Fiber optic. Goes in there. And I assume it comes off of this light, which is in here, and this is for, your cigarette lighter, so you can find it in the dark. And then for here, you have a little extra light, and that is frickin' cool. Ooh, I just opened my Clarion 8-track, and this belt is limp and unwilling, and probably hasn't moved in a few decades. I need a new belt. Now, I suppose I could find the belt in that one, see if that works, but that one that I just showed doesn't have the tape heads or the motor in it, so I don't think it's got a belt either. Yes, but that's pretty obviously how it went. We'll see if I can get it off without it completely crumbling like a book in the time machine. So, it has been weeks, but you can't tell that because you're watching a video. The primary problem here is quite simple, actually. The oil pan on a Miata engine is incompatible with this engine bay if I'm going to leave it relatively stock, which is kind of my idea. I need to move everything 4 inches back, and it'll make everything play nice. I can fit a radiator. Gearbox will have to be sorted out. I can use the stock motor mount, and ideally, that crossbar will not interfere. However, that oil pan has got to be modified. And in order to do that, I need to take it off first and take it to a fabricator who can cut and paste of sorts aluminum for me.
much more similar to the original engine's oil pan, which was shaped, obviously, for this engine bay. So there's that. There's the motor mounts, which are a little further down the line. And I also need to cut a better hole for the gearbox, unfortunately, because right now the gearbox is exactly where I want it, but this ain't gonna work. So, yeah, fun and eventful times. Today, our task is a simple one. We're just yanking the engine out, getting the oil pan off, and putting the engine down for later, for fabrication and later installation. And just like that, I forgot to record, and he is off to do other things. First triumph, he's got to try. You see, he's got a triumph over here. But anyway, yes. So I've already taken the bolts on this side of the oil pan off, and need to do the other side and explore and find out how to take this thing off. You'll notice now that it's out, I can now illustrate the problem. This hump has got to be moved over here on this bit, so that there is room for the cross member and the steering rack. Don't look over at the welding lake. Anyway, so that requires some cutting, some welding, not pasting, welding, and then some fabrication, because there is going to be a hole. This is part of the seal between the transmission and the engine. I'd be an idiot not to do the rear main seal at the moment, but I might be able to get away with it, or just freaking do it. And I'm also going to do the oil pan gasket, because I'd be a fool not to, and that's probably like $10 or something. Nevertheless, yes. The other thing that I had not realized is I probably am going to need to move this. So that is going to be part of the removal, flipping around of things. Oodles and oodles and oodles of fun. But there you go. Yeah. Let's get to it. So my current dilemma for the future is this here dipstick is attached there, and yeah, it can't be over there because the deep bit of the oil pan is going to be here, so it's got to be over here. So I need to come up with a more permanent solution to that. It's just a note to myself. But yes, this is slowly coming apart. There was a hidden bolt in there between the dipstick and the transmission mount, bell housing rather, that was sneaky on both sides, and I got them all out. There's, 8 bolts, little bolts, a really, really long bolt, and then 2 transmission bell housing bolts on either, all this on either side to remove your oil pan. And yeah, just doing the rest of the prying now, and then this will be off, and this will be to my welding dude. So the pan still won't come off because there is a tray of sorts, and it'll become more clear when I get it off, inside here, that kind of hangs out between the pan and the block of the engine. It's usually held in with these bolts, and then the oil pump, which is like there inside, is connected to it with a hose which goes down to here. So I need to get that off anyway, because I need to refabricate that hose so that it's just like pump hose. There you go. But on this side, it came off. On this side, it is stuck on there. And you can kind of see, there you go. A bit of metal and then block. So, maybe recompressing all this will, repair some of the damage I've done. However, video did tell me to take a knife and bridge that gap between, if it is indeed stuck, bridge that gap in between the tray and the pan itself. Otherwise, it's being held, that tray is being held in by bolts bolted to the oil pump. So that's why I can't just yank this out. Now, at this point, I'm just like, ready to yank it out. Anyway, I've removed all of the blocks beneath it, so I'm kind of sick of this thing, if I'm honest. But yes, I am prying this knife into that gap and slowly separating that pan from the trough. And just like that, it plopped off. Seriously, just gonna a little bit more tapping. Just a few seconds have passed since I stopped recording. Tap, 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 and then plop. So, it's aluminum, it can handle it. But yes, this is what I was talking about. This trough is connected directly to the oil pump, which is that, I presume. And I need to get this off because this hose, which goes to the oil pan, needs to be much shorter because I'm flopping around the low bit of the trough. I mean, I'm not doing it. The welding guy I've got lined up is doing it. But, yes, I'm going to need to do that. Fun. And that there is a job well done. Actually, they're in the oil pans, Monty, because they still leaking oil. This is what I was talking about earlier. I think it's tin. I really don't know, though. But, certainly I'm going to have to find out. So this piece, I don't think I need to cut or touch or modify in any way. I can just flip it around because the deep bit of the oil pan is going to be on the other side. But this hooks up straight to the, oops, there you go, hooks up straight to the oil pump. And it literally, this is how it works. It takes oil from the deep bit of the oil pan, pumps it through there and up and back into the engine. The thing is, the deep bit is going to be on the other side, and the deep bit's going to be on the other side. So this needs to be over here. So that's going to require some cutting. But yes, I don't think it's going to be a tremendously unstraightforward job. But yes, the ball will be in my welder's court after this. We'll see. Wonderful. So, real quick, let's take a look at this car's crankshaft. Yeah, crank. To my completely untrained eye, it looks great. I have no idea if it's disintegrating or not, but I didn't see any metal fragments or anything of the sort in there. So, that's good. And now, put a garbage bag over it, because it is in fact leaking still, even though most of the oil is drained. And, well, you can't see because you're on camera, but this is a tiny engine. It's cute. I shall be cross-referencing this with my earlier video, which also had a reference, but I need to order a new one of these because this one broke. I believe this is the camshaft position sensor. Don't worry, my dogs always bark. Maybe I'll spring for a new alternator, depends on how expensive that is, and I need a new alternator belt because that one looks rather peaky. Yes, and looks like a hospital bed or something, but yes, I figured that's shield enough. Nothing Lucas oil treatment can't cure.